Maybe you saw Huda demonstrate how you could lose a solid guy by mishandling modern dating advice or not, but this summer's hotly watched show, Love Island Season 7, can teach us a little bit about what it means to sometimes sabotage exactly what we want. We have so much information, but it doesn't always mean we know how to execute it in a way that gets us what we want and respects the people around us. Huda consistently infantilized and pushed away two guys who were really interested and very patient with her, and found herself in the final four, having decided to friend zone Chris and crying about the fact that this connection just didn't work out. In the name of empowerment, Huda, this loyal, passionate, very beautiful young woman, shot herself in the foot. All dating and relationships, they're about your personal civil rights. And you have most likely, if you live in a society, been socialized by that society. And for women in particular, sometimes you have been socialized to separate what you know to be true about what you want and who you are, so you can stay in relationship with other people around you, so that you don't upset a power imbalance that maybe your family taught you was correct and right. It can sometimes mean we are also attracted to certain destructive behaviors and we think other good behaviors, nice behaviors, are boring. We might stay with people who we should long leave because this is just what we're familiar with. Or we might push away good people who actually know how to deeply support us. This is Carol Gilligan, famous Jewish feminist psychologist who changed the game with her work in a different voice. This book changed everything because it made us think about how we teach young women long before they go on their first date to not know what they know deep inside about the people around them, to not intuit what they are getting about the men or the people or the society that they're living in. It matters that you hold fast to what you know to be true, what you know you need from somebody else. But where can we miss it and where can we go wrong with that? Returning to Love Island, and with a caveat, we don't know Chris, Jeremiah, or Huda, right? We weren't there. The show's been edited. We can only make some assumptions based off what we're seeing. So with that in mind, let's look at what happened. The general message that we can take away from this is that there might be a dysfunctional pattern of fear or a sense of shame or a sense of unworthiness that we've picked up from the general world. But then we have this message of female empowerment. We have this message of, well, I'm just not going to put up with certain things. And sometimes we ride so hard with that, which is great, that we don't see how we're using that to not do the other work we need to actually be able to treasure and hold on to a good friendship or relationship when it does come across our path. There's absolutely value in breaking down their final fight. We're not doing that here. Instead, we're going to look generally at how the issue is not that women have too high of an expectation. It's not that their standards are too great. It's not that they've been too empowered. The issue is that none of that was paired here with effective and loving conflict resolution. Huda starts off strong on this island by refusing to shrink. She defines and knows and is very clear about what she wants in a relationship and how she wants to feel with the guy she's with. This is an emotional freedom that was blocked from women politically for so many generations. That is due, of course, to the politics of a patriarchal society, because that society could not be formed around women and individual people knowing deep down what they needed and wanted in a mutually fulfilling relationship, because patriarchy is not about that. Patriarchy is about consolidating power through male dominance. When you're crystal clear on what you want, as opposed to looking at marriage and relationship as a way to have proximity to power, you have a much better shot at having a true supportive equal partner. But for 6 weeks in this villa, we watch as Huda tends to beat vulnerability to the punch by attempting to control and infantilize the men she's with. She also tends to compare them to this kind of non-existent ideal perfect man. Behind the mask that patriarchal societies bully men into wearing, they're just human beings with emotional needs, desires, and fears. It's heartbreaking to watch the men on this show consistently and constantly apologize for crying when they have no problem with the women doing that. Huda often would try to dictate to the guys in conflict or in a discussion about what went wrong, how they should feel about what happened and what she really meant and how that should change what they're feeling. What was forgotten in this conflict was that these guys, they also have individual hurts and needs and emotions that should be addressed too. But their emotional needs were taken as a sign to her that she was a failure or that she was a bad person. There was just a lot of shame involved. There's so much shame about her being bad and not in, hey, this action you're doing, it's really difficult for us to have closeness with this in our couple. In the name of having high standards and knowing what she wants, she would then just sever the relationship. Not because they hadn't worked on it, but because the conflict itself would get spiky and it would be triggering and she would get defensive. Now, again, we don't know her. We don't know what trauma response is happening here. We don't know what she's been through. We don't know if there's more context to what was happening that made her go, oh, I can't deal with this. So that's why we have to be gentle and give some grace here. To her credit, she does own that she was the one who would have emotional warfare with these guys, and then there was nothing anyone could do about it. The trap here is that Huda would see the validity of her desires and needs, and then conflate that with her actions around obtaining those desires. Those actions were not particularly healthy, but because they're attached to her sense of self, she was always super defensive about them. And then she would take everything that the men would do as a reflection of her own self-worth. So then she has to needle and correct them constantly so she can build that self-worth back up. You don't have to be all that vulnerable if you are constantly trying to control the situation. When Chris or Jeremiah tried to share their feelings about what they needed and it would go up against the stereotype of the silent, strong man, she would deflect. And then she would think, oh, this must mean something's wrong with me. Chris wanting to sleep is not that he's a human who might just not feel like doing that right now and he might feel like sleeping. It has to be that something's wrong with her. None of these couples then had a chance to actively work through the conflict in a kind and loving way because it wasn't about working through the conflict. It was about soothing this sense of rejection or preventing it from happening altogether. These conflicts then would be taken as proof that the men just couldn't meet these needs. When really what was happening was a lot of miscommunication and silencing. Silencing people, having a lot of miscommunication, and then not taking the time to look at that, it hurts everyone. No one's emotional needs can be met. And it's not your partner's job to necessarily meet all your emotional needs. It's your job to ask your partner to help you do that in a kind and respectful way. I, of course, would love to see more women leaving the first time they're disrespected. I would love to see more women saying single because they're not just seeing anyone meet the standards that they have. Don't get me wrong. I worry when people take true political and social empowerment and then they use it and it obscures the internal work they still need to do on themselves. I also don't like to see when people take this kind of empowerment and use it as an excuse for one partner to carry absolutely no part of the financial, political, social, mental load. As Alandria and Amaya said, no one is going to be perfect, but it does take two people working together on the same common goal to take care of each other. This was not required in previous generations. This is something emotionally that people have not had to practice. For centuries, people were taught that marriage is just a place where men provide money and power and protection. But power has shifted and it has changed the ways we relate to each other. In the finale, Huda breaks it off with Chris. We could tell that there's sadness. He had wanted to work on it, but she saw the conflict as a reason for why this was not going to work, alongside a bunch of other things like the long distance. I think you would probably agree with her that they did not have a great foundation to form this, but it might not be for the same reason she thinks. Huda and Chris were shocked that they won third place, but that evening they had a very pleasant and lovely set of speeches that they gave to each other, and there seemed to be a lot of kindness and generosity involved, so kudos to them. If we take anything useful from what these two chose to share with us and what production chose to give us, it's that it's too easy to sweep under the rug in the name of progress and empowerment, the emotional, social, and relational work we all deserve to work on for ourselves and for the people around us. If this inspires you to do anything, let us evaluate and take stock of the ways we can better care, support, and love each other. You and Huda deserve good things. It's worth the time and the effort to heal from the things that scare us.